Just a little housekeeping to get out of the way so I don't have to return so many comments. I'm not reviewing these two bikes because they're identical and because they should be compared directly. I'm reviewing them because I own both of these bikes right now at this time, and I'm really interested in them, and it's an interesting comparison. So yes, one is a 300, yes, one is a 250, I get that. But if I want to do honest reviews, real world comparisons, I've got to review the bikes that I own. So without further delay, let's get to the video. Good morning, guys. You're watching Dirt Bike Channel. I'm your host, Kyle Brotherson, and I've got Sam Oldham here with me, and we have been testing these two bikes. These are both 2017 models. Behind me, I have the KTM 300XC 2017. Behind Sam, we've got the YZ250X, the Yamaha YZ250X, the two-stroke racing off-road / enduro installment that Yamaha has given us. And it's incredibly awesome to ride these bikes.
I am on the 2017 KTM 300XC. Sam is up there on my 2017 Yamaha YZ250X, and we've been riding these things, and holy crap, they are both so good.
I mean, it's amazing that Yamaha was able to come out and basically in the first shot, I know they had a 2016 version of this, but basically in their first shot on their two-stroke line, they were able to come out swinging and take some major hits and have some major wins over the KTM. In my opinion, it does have some things where I may prefer the orange bike a little bit, but overall I've been just absolutely ecstatic with the YZ, the Yamaha. And as we were riding yesterday, what did you notice, Sam, about the different characteristics of the bike? What was the thing that stood out to you most as we swapped back and forth a little bit?
I think the biggest thing that was just that there was a little bit more grunt on the 300, so I really feel like that was the kind of the big difference. But as far as just balances of the bike and stuff, they were both phenomenal. And you know, I know we'll later talk a little bit about that, but I really think both bikes were amazing in the really gnarly stuff, in the tight sections, in the big whoops and long fast runs and all that as well. So I was really pleased with both bikes.
Yeah, they have a little bit different characteristics as any of you guys would imagine, but they both feel very balanced. I think, and I've got maybe 10 hours on the YZ and 5.5 hours on the KTM. I think the KTM front end might feel a little bit heavier, and I use that word in air quotes because this is the lightest 300 that I've ever ridden with the new frame and the way the suspension is set up. But it did seem to me like the YZ just has that little bit of an edge on its like quickness factor on that front end. Now that does make it a little bit more twitchy. So there is that to consider. But one of the things that I did last night was I took both bikes down kind of a section, half-mile section of whoops, and both bikes felt really good, although I might actually give the edge slightly at this time to the Yamaha. That was just me personally. I know Sam felt really comfortable on the front forks on the KTM. The KTM has the air forks. These are the AER 48 forks that KTM has gone to, and they are phenomenal. But overall, I felt like I was a little bit more planted on the Yamaha and a little bit more comfortable through the whoops. When we switched over, did you notice any choppiness on the forks on the rockier section, like from bike to bike?
Yeah, I felt like the KTM was better when you were rolling over the really sharp edges, rocky sections. It just soaked it up nicer.
It was absorbing it, right? It was
absorbing it. I mean, it doesn't mean that this did better, actually, than what I feel than my 2015 300, just soaking up the rocks. But the new 17 300 with air shocks was even better than the Yamaha. And so I automatically felt, wow, this just feels like it's gliding over it. And we have it set right in the middle, right? We haven't really touched it, and we just wanted to kind of go for a baseline. So you could even go softer, but I was really pleased with just like, it felt really comfortable going over the rocks.
Yeah, you could go a lot softer. Right now, I've been running the bike with 139 pounds or PSI in the fork. And so you could soften that up a ton. It could go a lot softer, and it could go a lot harder.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about the balance of the bike is you can, instead of like with these, you have to change a spring rate if you want to go softer. But with that, you can just go with take some air out or put air in. So the adjustability versus just your compression, your rebound is much more flexible, which is really nice.
What are the main differences between these two models? Well, on the first hand, everyone always tells me there's a big difference in price. The KTM does cost a little bit more than the Yamaha. It kind of depends on when you buy them and what dealer you buy them from. I found that a lot of different dealers, offer a lot of different fees and a lot of different things. Basically, when I bought the Yamaha, I ended up getting it from a local dealer, and they gave me a decent deal on it. They knocked a little bit off of the MSRP and didn't charge me a lot of setup and freight. I called 35 different dealers to find the KTM that I needed because it was such a hot bike, and I ended up finding a dealer that was, a long way away from me, and I drove and got the bike for a really good deal, significantly under MSRP. And so that brought the bikes so that they were I'm gonna have to do the math on it. I'm looking at the invoices that I paid for these bikes. I paid $8,615 for my 2017 KTM, and I paid $7,282 for the Yamaha. So the Yamaha was $1,334 cheaper than the KTM. But I'll tell you some of the things. We'll tell you some of the things that you don't get on the Yamaha. You don't get a desert tank. On the Yamaha, you've got a 2.1 gallon tank. On this bike, on the KTMs, you're going to get a 2.6 gallon tank. A half gallon is the difference between, 8 to 15 miles, just depending on the terrain and all that stuff. And I'll tell you, a 15-mile walk, an 8-mile walk is a long way to walk back to the truck. So I give the nod to the KTM there. There's about $300 on the tank. As far as the clutch, I do not like, and Sam does not like they're both mechanical clutches, but on the Yamaha you get a braided steel cable clutch, and it just doesn't have the same feel. I know that it's a preference thing, but on the KTM it's a hydraulic clutch. It's easier to pull, it's more consistent in my opinion, and easier to use. There's maybe $300 to $500 if you're going to switch over to the Yamaha. The other thing that you're not getting is electric start. So one of the things that makes the KTM so fast and so fun and so easy to stop and start is the fact that it doesn't have that e-start. The e-start if you were going to convert a bike like this to e-start, good luck, you can't really do it. I don't think they make an electric start kit for the Yamaha. It's not a deal killer because I still love the Yamaha, but
it's a two-stroke, so it's easy to start.
Yeah, it's easy to start, but you cannot put electric start on that bike, and if you could, I can't imagine that if the manufacturer would charge you any less than $500, it would be, I don't know, somewhere $500. We're making up, so yeah, the KTM does cost more, but you get a little bit more on that bike.
And also if you did a 300 kit. So if you were just going, a lot of guys say, well, you could, if you wanted the grunt of a 300, do a 300 kit, which is what, $300 to $500 as well. Yeah.
So it's like, you kind of have to factor those things in. Let me run down some numbers for you. If you put an oversized tank on the bike, it's $300. If you put a hydraulic clutch on there, there's $300. If you put e-start on the bike, and I'm just making it up at $500, but you can't even get it, and then you put a 300 kit on there at about $300, that's $1,400. That's the difference in the cost of these bikes right there. On the topic of the electric start versus the kick start, like Sam mentioned, both bikes are easy to start. However, yesterday when we were riding, when we were swapping back and forth, I first started out on the Yamaha, and I'd have to kick start it every time we stop somewhere to do something, maybe set up a camera shot. And then when we switched over to this bike, I would just hit the go button and then take off. And what did you say to me last night about getting in the dust?
Well, I was just, the funny thing is normally when you're riding with other people with e-start, it's just whoever can get the bike started the first gets in the front. And I noticed with the kickstart, just from having even if I was anticipating they were leaving, Kyle still would be able to beat me, but I would basically put the Kickstarter out and kick the bike, and by that time he'd be at least 5 bike lanes in front of me. So I mean, it's obviously a lot faster, but that's something to think about as well, is where he just was like boom, and then he's shift down and he's gone.
Yeah, and there was a time where I kind of stopped in a bad section. I thought, I think I want to take some video right here, and I was halfway up a hill. I didn't want to have to hike the cameras around, so I stopped right on the middle of the hill and got some cameras out, had Sam hold the bike, got some cameras out, set up a shot, and then now I'm stuck on the side of this hill, and I've got to swing my leg over and kick it. And it just, electric start, guys, don't knock it till you try it. It's phenomenal, and it's a big deal. It's not a deal killer to not have the electric start on the Yamaha. And I'll tell you what, if there are 3 things I would change, and some of you guys might have seen this in other videos that we've done, if there are 3 things that I would personally change about the Yamaha, they would be these 3 things in this order. Number 1 is I would change the hydraulic clutch. I would move to a hydraulic clutch. I have a hard time controlling and modulating the power how I want to when I'm on the Yamaha. It just, as soon as I grab any clutch to try to get my RPMs up at all, I end up pulling almost all the power out to the rear wheel, losing momentum, and then I try to barely release that and give some of the power back to the rear wheel, and then I've got too much power to the rear wheel and I end up wheeling. Have you had that problem, or have you seen that issue?
Oh yeah, especially in the really, really gnarly stuff. Like we've mentioned earlier, it's the same. It's just, you cannot just pull the clutch in and have power still there. It just goes and comes out. So basically what you're doing at this point is you're pulling it out and putting it back in, but you're doing the throttle as well at the same time to be able to keep yourself going, to keep the RPMs up enough that you don't kill the bike. And it really manifested itself in the really gnarly stuff, and I really preferred the hydraulic clutch.
Yeah, so that's number 1. The second thing that I would change about the bike is I would rather have just a little bit more low end. And it's probably due to the gearing, and then also the fact that it's just a 250 versus a 300. The gearing on this bike, on the Yamaha, the first gear is very, very tall, and that means that you have to do a lot of clutch work, And so the little bit of that, if you had a little bit more low end, it would probably be, easier to manage. The third thing that I would change over on the YZ250X to bring it more in line with something like the KTM model, and it's a distant third, is that electric start. I know we made a big deal about how amazing the electric start is, and it's true, it is amazing. But it's the third thing that I would change, and the reason why I place it third, in my order of importance of the things that this bike would need to be able to come in line with the KTM, is the fact that because it doesn't have electric start, it is lighter, and I do think it still feels a little bit lighter than this bike. Hey guys, if you didn't already know, Patreon is the best way to support Dirt Bike Channel. We've got some really cool rewards over there, so click on the link up here that you see to become a patron. That'll take you directly to our site, and you can check everything out. You can donate as little as $1 per month, and it would really, really help us out. Thanks a ton, guys.